So as we've said right from day one, we're engaged very effectively with the Malaysian government. And in fact, this morning the ASX, because there has been so much media speculation and some of it may be founded and some of it may not, so they asked us to make a statement, and that statement stands that we're productively engaged with the Malaysian government. The indication has been provided that the formal announcement with respect to the licence renewal will be made in mid-August. That would be on what we would regard a reasonably normal time frame. We've had 3 previous licences granted, and I think the longest has been 2 weeks prior to the licence renewal being required. So there's a process to this. Previously, we had to formally submit the licence application between 60 and 30 days before the licence was due for renewal. That has actually been changed, and now it's between 30 and 15 days before the licence is due for renewal. That's not a Lynas-specific matter. That's the AELB process in Malaysia. So that application is being processed at present. The rest of it is speculation.
With respect with what's going on with these external factors, do you think the Lynas share price is fair?
That's not actually my job to worry about. Whether that's an investor's task. I mean, I know it sounds a little pat, but I can't. I have a very full life, and I cannot worry about the things that I do not control. What I do know is that over time, the share price will respond to us building value in our business. And so that's what it's done. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the share price was equivalent, I think it was 38 cents. Today it's sitting around about $2.80. That is because we have focused on creating a better value, more value in our business. So I believe that the market actually does typically get the price right over time. And so I think once we take out a little bit of the uncertainty that continues around this, that, the long-term value that rests in the Lynas business will be reflected in the price.
Given the interest in the non-China supply of rare earth materials and the sudden realisation by the US that they might have a problem, companies like Aluka and a few others have now started to run feasibility studies on exporting concentrates. I mean, do you see the move of other companies into this space as any threat to your plans out to 2025?
In a previous life, I've worked in 2 businesses where they've essentially been monopoly markets where it has then deregulated. So at one stage in my life, I worked for ICI, I worked for Incitec, and 20 years ago, fertiliser markets in Australia were protected by geographic boundaries, basically because they were low analysis fertilisers. And then high analysis fertilisers became more prevalent, and all of a sudden you could ship ammonium phosphate from Florida to Mackay for the same price as it would cost us to get it from Brisbane to Mackay. Then I went and worked for Telstra, and I joined Telstra, and I was head of marketing for contestable areas at the time of the first ballots, right? And so Telstra was going from a monopoly to a highly competitive situation. And you know what I discovered in both instances is the textbooks are right. That it's all right. The textbooks are right, and that monopoly markets are unhealthy markets, and competitive markets are healthy for all participants in the industry. They're healthy for customers, they're healthy for suppliers. It means that you have more investment and more innovation in the industry generally. So we have market first mover advantage. We're not intending to stand still. We have the world's premier developed deposit, and we have the IP to be able to grow value in our business. So I'm not actually spending a moment of my time looking at the competitors. The minute I do, I lose the game, right? So we are focused on our business and growing value in our business, but does additional activity in the market help to accelerate growth, grow the market in total? Yeah, that is my experience, and I wouldn't expect that this market will be any different.
Now, to what extent does the decision coming out of Malaysia affect the plans for your further upstream processing of the ore at Mount Weld? I mean, if you get a favourable decision from the Malaysian government, do you kind of pull back and sort of go slow on that plan, or does that just remain the same regardless of what the decision is?
So Cam and Tony up the back, so Cam's our VP of Operations, will tell you that I've been harassing him for, how many years, Cam?
Oh, it seems like just last year.
For about 3 years on cracking in WA. If from day one, if I had a magic wand where I could just reconfigure things, strategically cracking close to the resource is a sensible idea. Having said that, we have an asset where it is. But as we look at growth, would it make sense for us to put more capital on the ground for cracking in Malaysia, regardless of the regulatory situation? No. So therefore we say, well, we are going to establish a new cracking facility in WA, and as the guys have been looking at the engineering and the costs associated with that, right, this much to get, sort of the growth portion, so let's say, 3,000 tonnes or thereabouts, and only this much to then take it up to 100% of our required capacity. So over time, it just makes sense for us to transition, regardless of any regulatory situation. It makes sense for us to transition.
And what about the waste from that process? I think the WA government said previously, correct me if I'm wrong, that they didn't want to take any waste from Malaysia. Do you anticipate a possible problem with that?
No. And so I think it's really important to understand that the government policy, both at the state and federal level, has nothing to do with this material specifically. It is not international practice for countries to take residues from an industrial process in another country back. Malaysia is not about to accept all of the rubber from the disused rubber tyres that actually started off in Malaysia. Australia is a resource exporting country, and Australia is not about to say, yes, send us back the residues from your industrial processes. The material is an iron phosphate material. It's radioactivity when it comes out of is comparable to the rock phosphate which is used in fertilisers. It has been vilified and politicised in a way that we don't even have to placard it as radioactive here in WA. I mean, it goes from Mount Weld to Fremantle. It goes transshipped across Singapore. It arrives in Kuantan, and then the little man goes around and puts a radioactive sticker on it. In terms of international practice, nothing under 10 becquerels per gram needs to be placarded. This is 6 becquerels per gram that we're talking about. That's what it is coming out of the ground. That's what it is as a residue. There are many other operations in Western Australia today that produce residues which are up to maybe 500 becquerels per gram, and there is not an issue with managing the tailings.
Amanda, you said you've been thinking about cracking here for several years. Are you any closer to being able to give a breakdown of the 500 million capital works program, how much that plant will cost you? And in terms of the site, is it still between Mount Weld and here in Kalgoorlie?
So the second part of your question, yes, it is. And I did have a slide I was going to include today, but it's turned out I had too much content for my 20 minutes anyway. But yes, it will either be at the mine site or here in Kalgoorlie. And we would expect that we will be making an announcement on that within the next couple of months. In terms of the more the larger piece of work, I can say to you that the lion's share of the 500 million will be spent here in Western Australia. However, Cam's team has quite a lot more work to do on that engineering before we can put, reliable numbers out.
Right. And you mentioned that the renewal process is proceeding to expected time frame, but if, and I know it's hypothetical, the renewal was short term, let's call it, how much, what would you be your reaction to that? Is that going to cause you some problems if it is only...
I suspect it will worry all of you more than it will worry me.
And why is that?
I don't know, because you guys seem to worry about stuff I don't worry about.
But if it's only 6 months, don't
and
you
you speculate about stuff that I don't speculate about. So I said in the presentation, rare earths industry is important to Malaysia. Ensuring that businesses are operated consistent with the rule of law is important to Malaysia. And there is real opportunity for further development and downstream operations, and to make an unhelpful decision in this case when we are talking about this being political, not scientific. We are not hiding any deep, dark secrets here. And I showed you the photo. I showed you the sort of the controversial material. We've been reviewed 4 times, twice by the IAEA, the Parliamentary Select Committee, and the Pakistan Harapan government's own Executive Review Committee. In each instance, low risk, compliant with regulation. So I believe, and I have confidence in the PH government. When you really look at it, the anti-Lynas activists are relatively small in number.
So speculation aside, what are the key factors to follow such that shareholders and investors can appropriately value Lynas?
So I think that the life of the business, the exposure to growth markets. I mean, I saw one of the presentations was talking about 1% to 2% growth. We're talking about maybe 10% growth per annum of the market. The ability to for us to develop relationships in outside China markets and grow those markets. All of these things, I mean, it's like with anything, you can't save your way to success, you actually need to sell stuff. And so we've got great opportunities to do that as the market continues to grow. Rare earths are, some people talk about them as being the vitamins of sort of technology, and that's true. So it's an exciting business in terms of the market. We are an excellent business because our resource gives us significant advantages at Mount Weld. And, the thing that I didn't really have enough time to really spend on is that you can't pick up a textbook and work out how to process rare earths. And so the IP that we have developed in our business over the last 5 years has significant value attached to it.
In terms of the potential US facility, is it likely that facility, whenever it comes around, will meet with, basically, I mean, Americans, have a strategy into one of these minerals. Are they going to have to pay for them? I mean, essentially, are they going to have to, say in the uranium market, pay long-term prices above spot prices to encourage new production or sustain production? Or are they going to have to, as the Japanese have done, lend money at discounted rates in order to ensure that startups are viable?
Possibly all of the above. So the US has allowed itself to be quite exposed. And the facility we're talking about in the US, the first stage is heavy rare earth separation. Now Australia has heavies, our Mount Weld resource has heavies. On that chart of products, SEG is a heavy rare earth compound, but at present the only place in the world that separates heavy rare earths is China. Now every single high performance magnet requires a very small amount of heavy rare earth, generally in the form of either dysprosium or terbium. And so therefore everyone in the West is very alert to this. And then there's a variety of other heavies which are particularly relevant in defence applications. So this is a great opportunity for Lynas once again going into the heavy rare earths market. We will be the only non-Chinese producer of this material, and so we would expect that it will attract support in the US.
Is there any update, Amanda, on in terms of the cracking and leaching facility in WA? Is there any update in terms of the timeline around that? And are you still feeling a bit frustrated by red tape in terms of getting the approval process for that?
I don't think we've had any frustration in terms of red tape, have we?
Not
No.
here in Australia.
Not here in Australia. So
And the indications from the government's been very positive.
yeah, so we're, but we do know that approvals in any government happen happen most efficiently when we have done our work properly to start with, right? So the minister will say that when people put in applications and then seek to change them on the run is when you have a problem. So we have a team working on this right now, right? We have our team working on it, right, as opposed to paying a huge amount of money to an external study team. So our team actually knows what they're doing. I think one of the really great things for Malaysia is that when we built this facility in Malaysia, the engineering and fabrication was done in China and Korea. As we do this here, we expect that we will have primarily the engineering and fabrication actually done out of Malaysia. So this is a significant, because we have found that we have a number of trusted firms there and really some very strong and innovative engineering capability.
So sorry, just the timeline. Is there any update on when you?
No. We've sort of said that we would hope to be starting to produce out of a facility here somewhere, towards the end of 2022, 2023, and then it will be a period of ramp up and transition from Malaysia across to here before we would say that we have 100% of it being produced here.